Hi, I'm Chad. It's a sunny spring day here in Kentucky, and today I'm going to be turning this big piece of American black walnut. Where I live in central Kentucky, we have a fair amount of this around, and I was just lucky enough to get my hands on some recently that's very fresh. Um, this is probably going to be a messy turn. It's probably going to sling a lot of water, and I'm sure I'll be covered and stained by tannins uh, by the end of it, but that's part of it. So for this one, I'm going to chisel away some of the bark first. I'm going to try to use a spur drive and align it the way that I want. Um, Ideally, on something this big, I'd like to use a faceplate, but it's not quite symmetrical the way it's been cut. So I'm going to try it with this little spur drive, and um, we'll see how it goes. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but I am going to try to do this as a natural edge bowl. Whether or not the bark stays on, we'll see. Walnut bark is really thick and it's really cool, but it makes a very fragile bowl, and um, I'm always I'm always hesitant to leave too thick of a bark on. I've got the bowl pretty much in the shape of the outside that I want. You may have noticed toward the end, I kind of pushed the bowl up about half an inch, and it's because I noticed this pith running through there. So I'm going to, this may end up being a little flatter than I initially had planned, but that's okay. Um, and I didn't mention this was kind of adjacent to some crotchwood, and so it's got some deterioration and a crack going through there, but I'll deal with those later on. I don't think the crack is going to be a dangerous issue, but I will probably reinforce that once I start hollowing out the inside a little bit. So you may have noticed I spent a little more time working on the back there. That pith went a lot farther, and now the bowl's probably about an inch shallower than I had initially intended, which is fine. It'll still be gorgeous with the contrasting sapwood and everything, and it's got some kind of funkiness down at the bottom. Just going to kind of have to play it by ear, see what I find inside. I'll probably end up reinforcing it with some super glue, and hopefully that'll be enough to take care of it. But I guess let's start hollowing. So I'm down to the part of the bowl where I'm seeing the crack. It's still probably a good inch thick right there, but I'm not liking the sound it's making as I'm turning it, and I don't want it to just, finish cracking there and blow apart. So I'm going to start to address the crack now, and I'll show you my kind of different approaches depending on the situation. If you've been turning for any amount of time, you probably have a good collection of CA glues by now. And it's kind of like the woodturner's duct tape, which if you like duct tape, try gaffer's tape, way better. Anyway, I've got flexible here that I'm going to use in any larger gaps, and this thin stuff is what I'm going to start with and use it like right down on the ends, with the thought being the thinnest stuff is going to go deepest into the fibers, and when it cures it'll help prevent that crack running any further. So that's my thought. Hopefully it works. I'm going to do the same thing over on this side. course, that bark I was talking about earlier is, I just heard a little piece of it crack, so got to be careful of it. Then I'm going to do the same thing with the thin on any of these really, really close cracks. And these will probably, between finish turning and sanding and all that, this part that I'm gluing may not even be part of the bowl anymore, but it might be important in holding it together until it can be turned away. So kind of looking at this side, I don't think I'm going to do anything on the inside yet. I'll probably do a few more cuts, stop, and possibly address something in there. But out here, I am going to use some more of this thin and try to get it kind of down in the crack as much as possible. And it's super thin, so it should get down in there. Coax it in the right direction. And then some accelerator. If you are looking for CA glue, Starbond's good. There is a link or a link to get 15% off in the description. So you can check that out if you're looking for some super glue. So that's about as far as I'm going with this bowl today. It's been a bit of a nightmare between the cracking, the rot. I did manage to keep it together. It was making some horrible noises. Not sure if that'll come through on the time lapse. The bark stayed intact, so there's a positive. It's nearly an inch thick in some places. Pretty cool, of course. Whether it stays that way in the long term, we'll see. With the rot and the holes down here, I'll seal them with super glue, CA glue, like I was saying earlier. Not sure what I'm going to do with the big holes. You could always fill them with epoxy. Either pour some resin in there, just mix up some 5-minute epoxy, and with some sort of opaque powder and fill those in. So that's some possibilities if you have a situation like this. But this piece is going to need to dry before I attempt to sand it. It needs a lot of sanding. So to see the finished product, check out my social media, Instagram and Facebook at Chad Eames Woodworks. You can check out my Etsy shop, see what I have for sale there. It's chadeameswoodworks.etsy.com, or just go to chadeames.com. There's links to everything there. There's a blog if you're a beginner. There's some articles there that might help you. This is probably going to spend a few days in a paper bag, then get sanded, and as much as a pain as it was, it should be a nice bowl in the end. Thanks for watching. I hope you'll subscribe and come back for the next video.